everyone, today we're going to be doing the most requested flow from you guys, which is a deep hip opening flow. So we'll be spending about 20 to 30 minutes just opening up all through our hips, our quads, our hamstrings. I know that, especially for me, having been in Netflix position on the couch for the past 4 days, I know that this is the part of my body that really feels like it needs a lot of attention and a lot of opening. So I'm in my comfy clothes to show you just how kind of accessible this flow is going to be. We'll be holding some deep postures for a while, which may feel a little uncomfortable, but we won't be working up much of a sweat. I want you to come and start in a comfortable seated position, like easy pose here, but if you do sit in easy pose, I want you to switch your legs around. It'll feel a little bit weird to do that, but I find that we need to sometimes break that habit of always sitting with one knee in front of the other and flip that around to break that habit. This is something that Jenny Cleese, one of my favorite teachers, always makes me do in her classes, and I love making my students do it too because it kind of flips your perspective a little. So once you've changed legs, just let your hands rest gently on your thighs. You can have your palms facing up or your palms facing down, just whatever feels good for you. And then just gently close down your eyes. And just notice the rise and fall of your chest as you inhale through your nose and as you exhale through your mouth. And again, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. I just want you to focus on your breath just for a few moments here. Inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the mouth. Just use this as a time to really tune into your body. And notice what areas might feel tight, what areas might need that breath to bring space. Often when we do a hip opening flow, it can tend to bring up a lot of emotions. We tend to store a lot of memories and kind of emotional experiences in our hips. I often find when I'm in pigeon pose that I feel like just really angry and really tense, and I find that the longer I sit in pigeon pose, the more I can kind of get through that and release it. So just know that today, like when you're going through this hip opening sequence, that you might feel different emotions coming up, and that's completely normal, especially when you're releasing those really deep hip muscles. And just gently blink your eyes open. We're just going to start in a wide-legged child's pose here. So we're going to take your feet together and your knees wider than the mat. Just walk your hands forward, sinking the hips down and back. Bring your forehead down to the ground. Really letting your hips sink back onto your heels. Really lengthening out through those arms. We could actually spend the entire class here. It's quite a deep inner hip opener or inner thigh opener. And just slowly making your way through tabletop. We're just going to do some gentle cat-cows just to open up through the spine and the hips. So we're going to inhale, arch the spine, looking up. Then exhale, round the spine, pushing the ground away, tucking the chin into the chest. Inhale, arch the spine, looking up. And exhale, round the spine, pushing the ground away, chin to chest. And one more like that. Inhale, really arching through the spine, drawing those shoulder blades together. Then exhale, round the spine, push the ground away. Just coming back through neutral here. I'm going to tuck the toes under, ground down through the hands, lift the hips up and back for your first downward facing dog. And just take a few moves here that feel good for your body. You might walk your dog, bending through one leg and then the other.
We might bend through the knees and then straighten the legs. Bending through the knees and straightening the legs again. And then just finding stillness here. Just a place that feels a little comfortable. Now we're going to inhale the right leg up and back. And exhale, step it between the hands, lowering the back knee down. Just making your way up into a low lunge. Hands are high. Now I want you to think about stacking that front knee over the front ankle and really lengthening up through that left hip flexor. So you should feel the stretch quite intense up that left side of the body. Now we're just going to take the right hand to the right hip or to the ground if you can reach. Just reach that left arm up and over. And coming back through center, planting those hands down on either side of that front foot, and then just straightening through that front leg for a half split. Maybe flexing through those toes, flexing through that foot. Then bringing the weight back into that front foot, making your way back up right into a low lunge. Then we're going to reach that left hand around to grab that left foot for a quad stretch here. So once you grab that left foot, rotate your hips to face forward. You should feel that stretch right down from your hip flexor, right down your left quad. Maybe bending through that left arm to draw a heel closer to your butt cheek. And then just gently releasing that down. We're going to plant the hands around that front foot. We're going to straighten that back leg. We're going to heel toe that right foot out to the edge and bring that right hand inside that right foot. So we're in a lizard pose here. I want you to lower the back knee down and just stay here for a moment. You might be used to going immediately down to your elbows here, but I just want you to take a moment here on your hands just to really feel into that inner hip, those inner thighs. Maybe you'll try rolling on to the outer edge of that right foot. You'll notice how that changes the stretch slightly. And then when you're ready and you're feeling a little bit more open, coming down onto your elbows or onto a block. And if you came down here and immediately you're thinking, nope, this isn't for me, just coming straight back up onto those hands, just honoring your body here. Breathing deep. And making your way back up onto your hands. Heel toeing that foot across through the center and over to the left hand side. And bringing that knee down behind the right hand. We're going to half pigeon here. You might want to kick those toes under and walk that back leg back a little bit. And it might give you a little bit more space. We're going to stay here on our hands just for a few moments while we let that glute sink down towards the ground. If you find that that right hip is quite far off the ground, you can just grab a pillow or a block and just feel that space with the block or the pillow. Then when you're ready, coming down onto your elbows. And if you feel like you still have a little bit more space, maybe walking your hands all the way out in front of you, bringing your forehead down to the ground. We're going to be here for about 10 more breaths. So just really sinking down into the ground. Just breathing through any discomfort here. Imagining you're sending the breath to those tight spaces in your hips. You can choose to stay here for the last few breaths, or if you want to make your way up onto your hands, take that left hand round behind you, grabbing hold of that left foot. This is quite an intense quad and hip opener, so it's not for everyone, so just take whatever your body needs here. Just gently releasing that back foot, planting those hands on the ground in front of you underneath the shoulders, tucking the back toes under, lifting that back leg off the ground. Just step straight back to downward facing dog. I'm going to inhale the left leg up and back, and then exhale, step it between the hands, lowering that back knee down for our runner's lunge, for our low lunge, sorry. Hands are high to the sky. Should be feeling this stretch along that right front of your hip. That front knee stacked over the front ankle. Gentle tuck of the pelvis. Then you're going to bring that left hand to your hip, to the ground, to a block. And you're just going to reach that right arm up and over. And just coming back through center, taking those hands high. We're going to bring the hands down to frame the front foot. We're going to shift the hips back, straightening that front leg for a half split. Flexing through those toes. And shifting the weight back into that front foot. Coming back up into your low lunge here. We're going to just bring the left hand down onto your front thigh or front knee, wrapping the right arm back behind you and taking hold of that back right foot. You might want to pad your knee here if it's uncomfortable on the ground. I'm using quite a thin mat, a travel mat that we packed for our year off. And I should probably have my knee padded because the ground is not as comfortable as I would like. Maybe you would draw that knee in, that heel into your butt cheek a little more by bending through that right arm. And then when you're ready, just releasing that down slowly, taking your hands to the ground. Lift that back leg off the ground, heel toe that left foot out to the left. Bring that left hand inside the left foot. Just taking a moment here in lizard before you lower that back knee down to the ground. We're going to stay on our hands here just for a few breaths. Maybe we'll rock onto the outer edge of that left foot and notice how that changes the stretch inside our hips. And then when you're ready, maybe coming down onto your elbows to really deepen that stretch. making your way back onto your hands if you put your elbows down. We're going to lift that back foot, that back leg and knee off the ground, and then just heel toe that left foot all the way across to the other side of our mat. Bring that left ankle behind the right wrist and that left knee behind the left wrist. So we're in half pigeon here. You might notice immediately that this side feels different. My left side is a lot tighter than my right in half pigeon. I'm going to just gently lift that back leg off the ground and wiggle my toes back just to give myself a little bit more space. Once again, if you have quite a big gap between your hip and the ground, so you can put a pillow or a block there just to add some support. Just taking a couple of breaths here up on your hands. And then if you're feeling up to it, you can come down onto your elbows here. And of course, you can always walk those hands all the way out in front of you, bring your forehead down to the ground for full sleeping pigeon. We are going to take about 10 breaths here, so just acknowledging your body as it works through this discomfort, this uncomfortable feeling. And you'll notice with each exhale that your hips might sink a little more into the ground beneath you. You can choose to stay here, or we can do what we did on the other side. You're going to come up to your hands, grounding down through that left hand, reaching the right arm behind you and grabbing hold of that right foot for a quad stretch. And then just releasing that down to the ground, planting your hands on the ground, lifting that back leg and that back knee off the ground, and just sweeping that left leg back for downward facing dog. Just taking any movements that your body may need here. Then we're going to walk those feet up to meet the hands. Just take a gentle ragdoll here, so bending through the knees, taking opposite hands around your opposite elbows, just swaying from side to side, releasing through the neck and the hamstrings. Then releasing those hands, walking your feet out to hip distance apart, as wide as your mat, so wider than hip distance, and coming straight down into your malasana or your yogi squat. So hands together here in front of your heart, using your elbows to gently push your knees out. You might find that it's really hard for your heels to touch the ground here, and you might find yourself more in this position, which is totally fine. If this is really uncomfortable for you, I suggest sitting on a block or a pillow or multiple pillows to provide some support. But just closing down the eyes here. Releasing those hands to the ground, just making your way into a sit, straight into our butterfly here. So you can make the diamond quite small between your heels and your inner thighs, or you can make it a bit bigger. Just, you might start somewhere and then find that it's not quite deep enough, so you can bring your heels in a little bit more. Just taking your hands around your feet and then just kind of opening your feet up like you're opening a book, using your elbows to push down into your calves or your thighs. And if you're doing this and you want to take it a little deeper, you can take your hands, lift your heels off the ground and slide your hands underneath those calves, taking your hands palms down on the ground and just letting your head drop. And then just gently making your way back up to seated. We're going to straighten out the right leg, bringing the sole of the left foot into the right inner thigh for Janushirasana here. Inhaling the arms high, lengthen towards that straight leg, and then folding over. You might find here that you can't quite reach your foot, so you can bring your hands to the outer sides of your shin, or you can bring your hands directly to your shin. If you want to take this deeper, you can crisscross your hands, taking opposite hand to opposite side of your foot, and that'll make the stretch a little bit deeper through your hamstring and through your side body. And just gently rolling up to seat. I'm just going to swap legs here. So left leg out in front of you, sole of the right foot to the left inner thigh. Inhaling the arms high, twisting towards that straight leg, and then folding. And once again, you might try taking that twisted grip just to deepen that stretch in the hamstring. And then rolling up to seated. We're gonna go into cow face pose here. So I want you to start with the right leg. We're gonna bend through the right leg so the right knee is facing forward. And then we're gonna cross that left knee on top of the right. So we wanna try and align the knees here. And you might find that this is not comfortable for a lot of people, but you might find that your feet are all the way back here. Or you might find if your hips are quite open that you can stack those knees and have your feet all the way out to the sides. What's important here is that you're just trying to stack those knees, and you want the feet to be kind of in line with each other, whether or not they're back here beside you or they're out here. So just take a moment to kind of wiggle into the cow face pose that feels right for you. And just know that I don't know anyone that finds this particular pose comfortable, and if you do, let me know, because it's a very tight, a very hard hip opening stretch. And then you might find yourself here and you're like, you know what, this is enough for my left hip. If you want to take this deeper, making sure both your sit bones are grounded down, and just fold over those legs. And it only goes as far as you can keep the sit bones on the ground. So you might be able to rock all the way forward, but your seat will leave the ground. So just keeping those hip bones ground down, those sit bones ground down, and then folding forward over those knees. And then just gently walking yourself up. We're going to take a little fun transition here. So if your right knee is on the bottom and your left knee is on top, we're going to twist to the right. So we're twisting clockwise. We're just going to twist all the way up and around and straight into cow face pose on the other side. So this time your right knee is on top, your left knee is on the bottom. I actually find that this side is harder for me, so my right hip naturally wants to lift off the ground. So as best you can, try and plant both sit bones on the ground. You'll notice here that I even have trouble stacking my knees. Just finding a space where you can kind of rest with that uncomfortable feeling, and know that every breath is bringing you just a little bit more space in that part of your hip.
If you took a fold on the other side, making sure you're grounding down through both sit bones and then folding over those knees. I'm actually not going to fold here just because my sit bones are not quite both planted. So you'll find me here for the next few breaths. And just gently making your way back up if you took the fold. And then just coming straight down onto your backs. We're going to go into happy baby here. So grabbing the outsides of your feet, pulling those knees down towards your armpits to the ground. Maybe you'll try straightening one leg and the other. I'm going to bring both knees into our chest, draw our forehead towards the knees, squeezing everything in, and coming down into Shavasana, lowering everything down to the ground, letting our ankles splay wide. I'm just going to take just a few minutes here just to rest. Let all that breath open up space in our hips and our legs. You can choose to stay here for as long as you need. And if you're ready, let's begin just moving your fingers and your toes. Maybe making circles with your wrists and your ankles. Bring both hands to your belly, feeling that breath rise and fall. And gently letting the soles of your feet on the ground, just rocking to one side, maybe using your arm as a pillow. Using your hands to push yourself up into a seat, keeping those eyes closed down. Notice if you automatically sat in your usual seated position, maybe just making a conscious effort to switch sides. Bring those hands together in front of the heart. I honor the space inside you in which the entire universe dwells. It is a place of peace and love and truth and happiness. And when you're in that place in you, and I'm in that place in me, we are one. Namaste.